In the 1970s, anthropologists noticed something unexpected. They studied some of the last remaining hunter-gatherer societies on Earth, communities whose lifestyles still closely resembled those of our ancient ancestors. Reports of depression-like symptoms appeared to be remarkably rare. Tonight, when you get into bed, your brain will probably start racing. We call this modern anxiety. We treat it like a glitch, but that exact feeling kept your ancestors alive. The question isn't why you feel depressed. The question is what happened to the world that made this feeling useless. For decades, we've been told a simple story. Depression is a chemical imbalance. Your brain just isn't making enough serotonin. It's framed as a random hardware malfunction, a biological defect, but evolutionary psychologists have a massive problem with this theory. If depression is just a broken brain, natural selection should have eliminated it hundreds of thousands of years ago. A prehistoric human who couldn't get out of bed, couldn't feel joy, and couldn't muster the energy to hunt was dead weight. And in a world where a slow reaction meant becoming lunch for a saber-toothed cat, dead weight didn't survive to pass on its genes. So, if depression is genetic and it survived 300,000 years of brutal natural selection, it has to serve a purpose. It can't be a bug. It has to be a feature. Think about what happens when you get depressed. You lose interest in the outside world. You don't want to go out. You don't want to socialize. You retreat to a dark room, usually alone, and you obsess over a single problem. Your brain loops the same thoughts over and over again. Why did I say that? Why did they treat me that way? Why can't I succeed? It feels like torture. But in 2009, evolutionary psychologist Paul Andrews published something called the analytical rumination hypothesis. He argued that depression is not a malfunction. It is the brain allocating massive amounts of energy to solve a complex, unwinnable social problem. When an ancient human faced a life-threatening crisis, being cast out of the tribe or experiencing a failing hunt, they couldn't just distract themselves with TikTok or a Netflix subscription. They had to figure it out, or they would die. The brain triggered a shutdown. It took away the distraction of pleasure, forced the body to sit still, and pointed all its cognitive firepower at the problem. According to the analytical rumination hypothesis, depression may function like an anchor. It forced you to stop moving, stop hunting, and just think until you found a way back into the good graces of the tribe. But here's the catch. In the ancient world, the problems were real, but they were simple. You were hungry. You were cold. You were exiled. Today, your problems are completely invisible and your brain doesn't know the difference. Your boss sends you a passive-aggressive email at 9 p.m. on a Saturday. You look at Instagram and realize everyone else's life looks like a perfectly curated movie trailer. While you're eating cereal out of a coffee mug, you have 400 digital friends, but no one you can call to help you move a couch. To your prehistoric brain, these modern stressors don't register as emails or apps. They register as social threats. And in the ancient world, a social threat meant exile, and exile meant death. So your brain does exactly what it was designed to do. It pulls the lever. It shuts down your motivation to do anything except analyze the threat. It makes you retreat to your room. It makes you ruminate. But the problem is, you can't solve an email from your boss by sitting in a dark cave for 3 days. You can't solve the existential dread of a 30-year mortgage by obsessing over it until you find a magical solution. The modern world creates an infinite loop of unwinnable, abstract social problems. Your brain anchors you to the bottom of the ocean, waiting for you to figure out how to breathe underwater. It's like your brain is running MS-DOS while the modern world is operating on quantum computers. The software is working perfectly, but it's trying to run on hardware it wasn't built for. So, what did ancient humans have that we don't? Why didn't this survival mechanism destroy them? The answer isn't a magic diet or a lack of emails, it was the structure of the tribe. When an ancient human got depressed, they didn't face it alone. They lived in groups of 20 to 50 people. They slept in the same shelter. They ate around the same fire. If someone slowed down, if someone couldn't hunt, the tribe noticed, they didn't hand them a pamphlet on mindfulness. They physically sat with them. They brought them food. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups like the Kalahari Bushmen have documented this exact process. When someone withdraws, the community actively pulls them back in. They assign them small, low-stakes tasks. They share the kill. The depressed person is never allowed to fully isolate, because isolation in the wild was a death sentence. The brain would trigger the rumination phase, and the tribe would provide the safety net. The problem would be resolved, and the depression would lift. It was a cycle that worked, but about 10,000 years ago, we broke that cycle. We invented agriculture. Farming Farming was sold to us as progress, but it was a trap. Once we started planting seeds, we stopped moving. We built walls. We locked up our food. And with agriculture came hierarchy. Suddenly, you weren't just a member of a tribe. You were a peasant, a laborer, a servant. The social equality of the hunter-gatherer campfire vanished, and with it, the safety net. As societies grew into cities, the tribe shattered into nuclear families, and then into individuals. We traded the physical safety of the group for the abstract safety of walls and locks. And in doing so, we removed the exact mechanism that cured depression. When a modern human gets depressed, what happens? They stop answering texts. They call in sick to work. And what does the modern world do? It leaves them alone. We live in houses separated by drywall. We communicate through screens that deliver dopamine hits, but zero physical presence. We have optimized the world for convenience, but we forgot that human biology requires proximity. You are a social primate that evolved to be touched, to be seen, and to be part of a pack. When you lose your pack, your brain sounds the alarm. It's doing exactly what it was programmed to do. We treat modern depression like a personal failing. We tell people to try harder, to exercise more, to think positively. We hand them pills to fix their serotonin, hoping to turn off the alarm, but we ignore the fire that is causing the alarm to ring. The fire is loneliness. The fire is a world that demands you be a self-sufficient machine, while your DNA demands you be a tribesman. Ancient humans didn't have zero depression because their lives were easy. They watched their children die of infections. They were hunted by monsters in the dark. They starved during droughts. Their lives were a constant nightmare by modern standards, but they had each other, and they had a purpose that was immediately clear. Survive the day, feed the fire, protect the group. Today you live in the safest, most abundant era in the history of the planet. You have refrigerators, antibiotics, and mattresses that conform to your spine. But you are statistically more anxious and depressed than a human being who lived in a dirt shelter surrounded by predators. Because your brain doesn't care about your refrigerator. It cares about connection. It cares about whether there is someone sitting next to you at the fire. When you lie awake tonight and your brain starts looping the same stressful thoughts, don't ask yourself what is wrong with you. Ask yourself what ancient need you are starving for. We didn't evolve to endure the modern world in isolation. We evolved to survive it together. We traded the tribe for the apartment, the fire for the smartphone, and the pack for the profile. And most of us are sitting in the dark, perfectly safe, wondering why we feel like we're dying.